Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Marvel Plus, the podcast devoted to all things MCU. My name is Brett Scott. I am your host, and this is the show. Now, today, man, where do I start? We had a live show last Friday the 13th, as it were, and things did not go swimmingly. A number of things went wrong, which I won't bore you with all of them, but one of the main things is that the recording was not only not picking up the video, you could only get audio, it was also short. I somehow forgot to include one of the major projects that was released in 2025. And it was brought to my attention by Stephen Banvard. You can always count on Stephen Banvard to come with receipts. And he came with the receipts. He said, Daredevil Born Again, Season 1, was not released in 2024, as I thought. It was released in March of 2025. I guess it had been so long since I did my review of Born Again that I literally thought it was the year before. And it seemed like, to me, 8 projects was more than enough to have in 2025. But apparently there was 9. So, man, what, in that sense, what a failure in terms of like an awesome live show broadcasting out there to everyone. And then, you know, an awesome recording to put out there on the podcast feed. It was a failure all around, except for the live show itself. The people in the audience were great. Either they didn't notice that I left out Daredevil Born Again, or they quietly left disappointed, knowing that I accidentally left it out. Otherwise, it was a very interactive crowd. We had a lot of good conversation. I do regret not having that part to share with you guys. As I said, it cut short. I only recorded about 18 minutes and it was all audio. And what I may do is I may just upload that over to the Patreon page, just as kind of a bonus episode, because it was good. It was a good conversation with the audience. I felt like I covered the things that I had covered, only about half of the shows. I had covered those pretty well. But, you know, overall, it wouldn't have turned out great anyway, because I would have been missing a major piece of the 2025 MCU. So what I've decided to do is give you guys, you know, the list that I was going to present to the live audience. Obviously, this time including Daredevil Born Again. And also, just so you know, I also included a series that released at the very end of 2024, which was What If Season 3. That came out the last week of 2024, and so it was not included in my previous year's MCU review. And so I wanted to include that so that I did have a ranking for it. Otherwise, it would just be lost to the ether, and, you know, that people would be like, well, whatever happened to, you know, you never ranked. I'm sure people would probably not even notice. But anyway, what I'm doing today is trying to make up for my failed live feed and giving you a proper 2025 MCU in review. So without further ado, let's get into the top 9 MCU projects of 2025. All right, here we go. Number 9 is Ironheart, because I am irredeemably racist. No. Listen, guys, the reason Ironheart is number 9 is, well, something's got to be in last place, right? That's how rankings work. And for me, this was I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it, because I did. There were some good aspects to the series. It's just that I think this is the one that I was least excited week to week, waiting for the new episode. Like, I wasn't super excited, on the edge of my seat, wondering what happens next. Now, there are some cool things, right? They finally introduced Mephisto. But even in that, I feel like it was a weird place to do it. It just, for me, it felt like I'm over it. I'm over Mephisto. Like, it's been too long. I wanted it in every single series from WandaVision on. And 4 years later, you give me Mephisto in an Ironheart series? I don't know. Just felt like a weird place to put it. Also, I think this is a victim of the same thing that Black Widow was. It came at the wrong time. It was released far too late. This should have come out right after Wakanda Forever and given us this background story on Riri Williams. So those are kind of my main gripes with it. I did enjoy the character stuff, the interactions between her and her best friend, and the story was pretty cool, but overall, it was the least enjoyable of all these things that came out in 2025. So, with that being said, let's move on and find out what beat out Ironheart. Moving on to number 8. What If Season 3. Now, I love the What If series, guys. Every season of it has been spectacular. I think it was just... Look, it's just that I like the other stuff just a tad more. Nothing wrong with this series, really. Nothing wrong with anything that I'm putting on this list. It's just that, again, that's how rankings work. I gotta put some at the end. And when it came down to it, it was the least memorable. So, there were some great episodes. My favorite was the one where Red Guardian and Winter Soldier are like teamed up in like a buddy cop road trip type story. That was the best one. It had the most comedy in it. And for me, it was the most interesting in terms of like story. I really like stuff, anything that has to do with like the Soviets and things like that. I love that they used the time period where it was like a time when Winter Soldier had woken up for a mission, and it also happened to be the time where Red Guardian was like important. And I don't know, I loved it. I thought it was a great episode. But that being my favorite episode, honestly, at the moment, I'm having trouble remembering other episodes from season 3. But as I said, I always enjoy What If. I think it's a great series, and it's unfortunate that 3 seasons is all they're planning to do, because I would love to see more. I would love to see them take more of the stories that we've seen and give us a twist on it. There's just so much that they could explore that they haven't even come close to tapping into yet. So it's really unfortunate. Hopefully at some point they'll have a change of heart and bring back some What If episodes. Maybe once like the X-Men enter the MCU and we've got a whole bunch of new characters and a whole new phase to kind of put twists to, that'll be something that we get. One can only hope. But that is my number 8, What If Season 3. Let's see what's better. On to number 7, Marvel Zombies. I thought this was a cool series, man. It edges out What If because it's memorable, right? I love that they not only introduce us to new survivors in this story, but still included the original survivors that we met in What If Season 1. right? That only gave us like one group of survivors to follow. This one gives us like 3 or 4 different groups that meet up with each other at different times, and the group, some of it, the group shrinks. Some characters die off, some turn into zombies. I thought it was awesome. Like, if you want to make a zombie series, like in the image of like a Walking Dead or something, like, they nailed it. They nailed a zombie series. Now, I don't know if the comic book series played out exactly the same way or in a similar way, but for me, Zombies beats out What If Season 3 because it was different. Even though it was a spin-off of What If, and we're literally still living in a What If universe, I'm glad it got its own series. I wasn't sure at first. Like, I know I enjoyed when we got that episode in Season 1, but would I have said, oh, please give me a whole series of that? Well, luckily it wasn't like 8 to 10 episodes or something like that. It was only 4 episodes, and they did it well by each episode kind of focusing on a different group of survivors and then how they end up intersecting with the other groups of survivors. I just thought it was, I thought it was awesome. You know, the continuing theme of the Wanda being like the big bad as like the zombie queen, I thought was like, she was a scary villain. Like, Wanda, just much like in Multiverse of Madness, like, she's a scary, formidable villain. There's not many who can top what Wanda can do in terms of like creating realities for people. I think the thing that won me over the most about the series is that it ended on a sad, scary note. Like, basically, the bad guy won in this one, guys. Like, in the end, you think that the good guys won, and then there's the twist that they're still all in an illusion created by Wanda. And that, for me, you know, puts it above these other series. I think that every once in a while, you gotta have the bad guys win, man. Every once in a while. Much like Infinity War, which is one of my favorite MCU films, period. I even put it above Endgame in terms of rewatchability and enjoyability. I love that it ends on a somber note. I love that there's a cliffhanger and you don't know what's going to happen next, and you just feel like dark and gloomy and sad, man. And every once in a while you need that to appreciate the good moments. Would Endgame be what it was if Infinity War had not ended the way that it did? And so that was one of the things I really loved about this series, is you didn't have the hero's triumph in the end. You actually had the villain winning. And I guess you imagine that this universe keeps going on in a terrible state, and there's nothing they can do about it, and that is dark, and I love it. All right, let's move on. All right, number 6, I originally had ranked in last place until I went back and revisited my review of the series. Eyes of Wakanda was a surprising series for me. I didn't expect to get much from it. I went in thinking like, okay, they dropped them all 4 at once. They must not be much, like, there must not be anything special about it. They're just kind of putting it out there. And, well, that may have been their thought, is like, this isn't going to generate a whole bunch of talk or anything. Man, once I got into it and realized it's an anthology series that takes place over multiple generations, different, like, I'm talking hundreds of years apart. It was so good. Like, I love anthology, guys. Anything anthology. You give me Twilight Zone, you give me Black Mirror, I'm here for it. And Eyes of Wakanda, while much different than a a series like that was really awesome, because it took like significant kind of time periods in history and some significant events in history and showed us what the Wakandans were up to at that time. And while I was a little confused as how like basically their technology back in like the 1300s was pretty much the same as it is, in the 2020s. I guess that's just how advanced their tech is, right? Like, it hasn't evolved much, and it's still like lengths beyond everyone else's technology on Earth. But not only did they go through these different time periods and show how the War Dogs, which is like the Wakandan, I don't know, CIA, I guess, Black Ops, they kind of go out and infiltrate. They go out and infiltrate society and make sure that Wakanda basically stays a secret. So, at several times throughout history, pieces of Wakandan tech have ended up in the hands of normies or out there in the world where people might discover them. And so they send out these kind of Black Ops, secret CIA agents, I guess, called War Dogs. And they go out and they go undercover and they do what they've got to do, whatever it takes to keep Wakanda a secret, to go and retrieve the tech that has made its way into the world. And seeing it over centuries like that was probably the coolest aspect. I think my favorite episode was the one where a war dog has to go to the Battle of Troy and he's fighting alongside the Greeks. And that part alone is awesome enough, but just the fact that they made it that he had been embedded with the Myrmidon, with Achilles' elite soldiers for 8 years undercover just to try to get this one piece of Wakanda tech back. I just thought that was awesome. Like it reminded me of The Departed, right? Where Leo DiCaprio's character is like embedded for so long that he kind of starts to think he is one of them. Like he starts to kind of forget who he is and what he's really there for, and he's having a hard time dealing with it. It didn't go that deep into that, but you could tell that this war dog definitely developed deep ties with these Greeks, especially Achilles. Became like the best friend to Achilles. Ended up having to sort of betray him in the end, and doing the twist on history where Achilles didn't die by an arrow in his Achilles, right? That it actually happened because of this war dog, unfortunately. And just the battle scars, physically and mentally, that this guy would have to come home to Wakanda with, from being embedded for so long with the Greek army and being out there in the world that was not his own, and kind of adopting it as his own and developing relationships. And I don't know, great episode, awesome episode. We also had an episode which featured like a different Iron Fist from centuries back. That was a great episode. Had a lot of like Asian influence, a lot of martial arts. I thought that was really good. It wasn't my favorite of the episodes, but I understand why people appreciate that episode because of, including this version of Iron Fist. So it was cool in that aspect. But one of the coolest things is like the sci-fi aspect in the final episode, where it intertwines with what we know of Wakanda, right? The events that we saw in Black Panther were 100% influenced by this trip into the past, where we get to see how the British ended up with this pickaxe or what have you, that that Killmonger ends up stealing from the museum. And it turned out that they actually sent out war dogs to retrieve this, centuries earlier. And a visitor from the future comes back to tell this war dog, hey, you can't take this back. It needs to be in the hands of the British because of future events and the way that they're going to unfold. And if it doesn't unfold the way that it's meant to, Wakandans will never open up to the world and share some of their tech and help in the battle against Thanos. And all these very important things will not happen if you take this tech back now and it's not there for future generations to kind of battle over. So this prince has to kind of give up notoriety in his present to kind of be important in the grand scheme of things. And I just love the Terminator aspect, where it's like, if this doesn't happen, then the future won't happen. But if the future doesn't happen, then this person never goes back to tell the war dog that they need to return this device. So I don't know. I thought it was great. I loved the sci-fi element to that episode. And overall, it was just such a surprising series that I enjoyed way more than I thought that I would. And that's why it beats out, these other things on the list, because it was just such a surprise and such a delight to find something unexpected. Anyway, if you skipped Eyes of Wakanda, go give it a watch. It's a quick watch. It's only 4 episodes. I think they're only like 20 to 30 minutes apiece. And it's really good. Like, don't sleep on this series. It's solid. All right. Moving on. Number 5 might surprise some of you. And I originally had it higher on my list. But then the more I thought about it, I had to make a last minute change. Number 5 is Captain America: Brave New World. And I hate to do this. I really hate to put it this low on the list, because it was one of my favorite things that came out in 2025. I enjoyed it, I think, more than a lot of people did. I think it suffered from trailers revealing too much, possibly some rewrites and things like that that made it not flow as well as it should have. But overall, I mean, the first Captain America trilogy is, for me, the best part of the MCU. And I thought this was a great addition. And so that's why it kind of pains me to put it like here in the middle of the list, because I did enjoy it. It's just that some of the other things that came out this year just edged it out, Let me talk about the things that kind of brought it down in the list a little bit. Number 1 was the trailer revealing the Red Hulk and making it like a staple of the story. Like, oh, this is what matters. It's Red Hulk. And I get it, man. You're trying to get people pumped. But in the same way that No Way Home was kind of ruined by all of the leaks telling us that there was going to be 3 Spider-Men from 3 different movie universes in it. Like, I think it really suffered. Now, while they didn't reveal that in the trailer for No Way Home, they did in Brave New World. They focused very little on the villain in the trailer, and it's like, if you're going to do a reveal that's not as consequential, but still consequential enough, reveal the villain, show what that's going to be. Like, the Red Hulk was kind of a surprise. What you should do is you should hint at it in the trailer. You should show that General Ross is now president. You should show that he's having some issues containing his emotions. But you don't show him hulking out in the trailer. And as much as they, I think, use that to get people in the theater, I don't think it made that much of a difference. Like, I think the people that were down for a new Captain America were in that theater regardless. And I think that the Red Hawk being in the theater probably didn't win over people who were already not interested. So I thought it was a great kind of like espionage story. I thought that the fact that the president was like manipulated into becoming the Hulk, the Red Hulk, was awesome. I love the whole story. I thought that Sidewinder should have and could have been a bigger part of the story. What an awesome character. So these are the kind of things that bring it down a little bit. But I, overall, had a great time watching this movie. I saw it twice in the theater. I watched it as soon as it came out on streaming. It's probably the second most rewatched thing on this list for me since it came out. So I love this movie, and I thought it kind of got a bad rap. I think people were expecting to dislike it because of all the rumors of the rewrites and everything, and I think that it suffered because of that. Like, people going in with a negative attitude. Of course, there were people who didn't want to see a new Captain America, but man, Falcon and the Winter Soldier was one of my favorite MCU series that they have made, and it still remains one of my favorite. And I was really pumped to see Sam Wilson Captain America show up on the big screen. And I wasn't disappointed. Like I said, I think it suffered some things it didn't need to suffer. Like, needless suffering for this film. Let the Red Hulk reveal be a surprise in the theater. You know? Give Sidewinder a little bit more to do. Anyway. Overall, I really love the film. I wish I could place it higher on the list. But this next series just edged it out. Let's get to it. Number 4, again, was a surprise for me. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did. But week to week, what a fantastic series. Much like X-Men 97, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man was one of the best things that came out, and one of the best animated series that I've seen in a long time. Week to week, you get introduced to new villains. You get a twist on Peter Parker's story. It's like it happens just a little bit differently. I love that they didn't just use, the Tom Holland Spider-Man and just tell us his whatever origin story, because we didn't need that. We didn't need another origin story, and I didn't need more time with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. We've already got 3 films. We're about to get another one. I liked that this one was different. I really enjoyed all of the characters. I loved Norman Osborn, and I loved the big twist with Norman Osborn. How, like, you were kind of wondering. It's like, yeah, he's always a bad guy, right? He always ends up being a bad guy of some sort. But in this story, you're not 100% sure. Because for most of the series, he's Peter's benefactor. He is the Tony Stark character to him. He's providing him with tech. He's helping him develop a new suit. He's giving him missions to go on. Like, I loved this version of Norman Osborn. Because not only was it like, you're wondering what's going to happen next, when's the other shoe going to drop, but he was sinister, dude. Like, especially when they revealed in the end, like, what he was really up to, and, great villain. Great, like, overall series villain. But not only that, you introduced a bunch of other cool characters, the best one being Scorpion. For me, Scorpion was the coolest, like, introduction in this series. I was that whole episode, I think that's my favorite episode of the series, is where they introduce Scorpion and they battle it out. And then they end up battling it out again later. Dude. And then having this character come in that was a new character, and Peter's friend that was like the football player, the jock, but he was also like part of a gang, kind of unwillingly. And dude, what a great character. And it ends up being Tombstone. Like, I didn't expect it even. And I even know the character of Tombstone, but just the way they introduced the character, I didn't expect it. Having him battle it out at the end, like with Scorpion, and then, dude, what an awesome cast of characters. And just the writing in this series was so cool. Again, like sci-fi elements to it, where not only with, like, you know, a guy being bitten by a radioactive spider and developing superpowers, but the way that they connected the first episode with the last episode in like a loop, where, you know, the way that Peter got his powers in this series, which was different than any other version of the story, was because of something that happened in the future. And the radioactive spider coming from, it's just like Terminator again, where it's a loop. And if the thing doesn't happen in the future, then the thing doesn't happen in the past. But if the thing in the past doesn't happen, the future doesn't exist. What an awesome alternate Spider-Man story. Like, this could be a what if series, right? This could be like Marvel Zombies. And I loved every aspect of it, and it sounds like we're getting a season 2, so I'm super pumped for that as well. These animated series are some of the best things coming out, like, especially, like I said, the X-Men 97. We're getting 2 more seasons of that. Cannot wait for that. But then, yeah, season 2 of this series. And they truly are some of the best things out of all the dozens of series that have come out on Disney Plus. These animated series are top of the heap. Anyway, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It was another one of those where I was excited week to week. I was excited to find out what happens next, and find out when Norman Osborn is gonna go bad, you know, and Harry Osborn. And I love how eventually, like, Harry Osborn has to, you know, turn against his own dad, and in the end they, you know, he's against his father. And I just, or was he? I can't, you know what? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure he does end up working with Peter in the end, but I could be wrong. I don't know. It's been a while, but the series stuck with me, and I absolutely loved it. That's my number 4. Now let's get on to the top 3 MCU projects of 2025. Numero 3, Fantastic Four First Steps. Clutch your pearls. I know. A lot of people had this as their number 1 thing of the year, for sure. A lot of people said it was one of the best Marvel things that had come out in a really long time. And it was. It was a great movie with an awesome, awe-inspiring villain. There's just, it's rewatchability and enjoyability for me. And, you know, the next 2 things have a little bit more of that. Originally, this was actually my number 2 until I realized that I had forgotten about one of the series, and you'll hear where I placed that in a minute. But Fantastic Four First Steps was casted perfectly, in my opinion. Like, Sue Storm, Johnny Storm, Reed Richards, Ben, they nailed it. And I wasn't sure that they had. When I saw the casting, even when I saw the trailers, I wasn't sure. You know, Pedro Pascal is in everything. So sometimes it's kind of like, oh, Pedro Pascal again? Okay. Because he's in everything. He's in everything. But that just tells you that he's a versatile actor. And I thought that he played Reed Richards magnificently. I thought he played this kind of like burdened with intelligence, you know, always kind of sad guy, because he felt like with his intelligence comes a lot of responsibility, right? Great power. And I just thought it was so great. And I like that they leaned into the fact that Ben Grimm was not thrilled with his life, because he's kind of stuck in this rock form and he can't lead a normal life. He can't even go incognito anywhere. And it's funny when he tries, you know, wearing a trench coat and hat like he's in Ninja Turtles. But, you know, and he ends up, you know, getting some play in the end. He gets a little bit of love story kind of happening, it looks like, at the end. But overall, really cool story. I enjoyed the Silver Surfer casting as well, which, again, not sure that I would, but turned out fantastic. Like, I think it was kind of like the sex of Silver Surfer was completely irrelevant. Like, that could have been a dude, that could have been a chick, it could have been a non-binary character. It doesn't really matter. It's the awesomeness of the character that's kind of like takes your breath away. Like, oh, that's wow. Like, you know, a god among men, or women. So that was one thing I was surprised by, that like it kind of didn't matter, other than kind of the fact that Johnny was infatuated by Silver Surfer. I feel like the sex didn't matter, and so it didn't bother me at all that they chose that version of Silver Surfer to go with. I know a lot of people had a problem with that. I did not. Best thing about the film, besides them just kind of nailing the feel of Fantastic Four, better than any film had done it before. Like, it felt like comic book Fantastic Four. This family aspect. Best thing about the film was Galactus. What an awesome spectacle Galactus was. And, you know, they even kind of had to tone him down, right? Because Galactus in the comics is incredibly huge, to the fact where he would eat the planets. And I love that their workaround in this film was kind of to have the planets ground down into like a substance that he would then absorb through like intravenous application. What a cool way to do it, because it would be a little silly to have a guy, you know, in this kind of more realistic world, to have a guy so big that he could just munch down a planet. Like, how do you fight a guy like that? And especially, how do you fight him without being out in space? And I just love that. And he could like shrink himself down and come down to Earth, and he was still so huge. He's like towering above the skyscrapers and knocking buildings over. And what an awesome villain, dude. What a, like I said, a spectacle. It was just awesome to behold Galactus. I think they did him right, man. I think people were worried, like, how can you bring this to the screen and have it be cool? And I think they did just that. And story-wise, only thing I had a problem with was Sue giving birth in the middle of like an escape from a villain and going through a black hole. It was just, I don't know, it was a little silly for me. But I've come to find out that is straight from the comics. Like, Sue is always giving birth in these crazy situations. So I am glad for that aspect. While I don't think it worked well for me on screen, I do love the comic book accuracy. I do love when they stick to the source material as much as they can. And I think this movie had that going for it. I like the solution that Reed ended up coming up with to... he was originally going to transport the entire Earth. I feel like what they ended up doing was actually the much more logical first step. So, first step, if you will. I think they should have always transported him to another universe rather than trying to transport the entire planet to another universe. I don't know. It just made a lot more logical sense to me to do it that way the first time. Like, if he's going to have the idea of, hey, we'll use this transporter to transport something, why wouldn't it be him? I guess maybe the risk was too high of having him actually make it to the Earth and come down and do damage before they could do it. But man, I don't know. I feel like he could have put one out in space or something and had it set up like a mine, you know, like a landmine where he would, Galactus would kind of inadvertently run into it and they would transport it. Anyway, that aside, I do love the solution that they came up with. I thought it was great, and I love the ending, the teaser for Doom, where you only see him from the side, and he's talking, you know, knelt down talking to Franklin. I thought that was awesome. I'm curious to see what happens next with this storyline. Like, how does it impact what happens in Doomsday and Secret Wars, and how powerful will Franklin be, and will they age him up? Or will that be something down the line that maybe we don't see him again until, you know, the Mutant Saga, you know, years from now? I don't know, but I'm here for it. Absolutely love the film. That is my number 3. Let's move on to number 2. All right, guys, we are almost there. We're almost there. And by revealing number 2, it will kind of reveal number 1, as long as you remember what all the movies and series were. My number 2, which was originally not on this list at all because I thought it came out the previous year, Daredevil Born Again. Now, this series did have some issues, kind of the unevenness, where they did complete rewrites and reworks of the characters. Even with all that, I thought it turned out pretty badass. While I would have liked to have seen more of the villain of the first half of the series, I think they did it pretty well, man. I really do. I think could it have been better? Could it have been executed better than it was? Yeah, absolutely. But I am such a fan of the Daredevil Netflix series and now the Daredevil Born Again series that it's okay. Like, I was waiting since the announcement of this, which was, years ago, waiting to see what they do with it, waiting to see if they could stick with the same tone, and I think they nailed it. I really do. I think they nailed the tone where it still feels enough like the Netflix series. I still don't think it's as good. I really don't. And it remains to be seen whether they can make it as good or equal to, you know, make it kind of a seamless series. But overall, man, I think they brought everyone back in fantastic form. You had a very dark Wilson Fisk. You had Matt losing the people that he loved, and it felt as dark and as important as the Netflix series. The only thing keeping it from being equal to the Netflix series for me was the unevenness, right? Like, I would have liked to see more of the original villain. I would like to have seen, you know, a whole season of that maybe, and then a whole season of more of the Wilson Fisk story, and bringing in the fact that Wilson Fisk is now the mayor and has so much more power, and, you know, develops this strike force to go out and stop vigilantes. Like, I love it. And gearing up for season 2, like, they set it up very nicely for a season 2, and I cannot wait. And that comes out real soon, like a couple weeks here, guys. I cannot wait for Daredevil Born Again season 2. But like I said, overall, I think they nailed everything, man. And I think that they've set things up for season 2 in a way that, like, Karen is going to come back into the fray in a lot more important role again. We're going to get characters coming back, like Jessica Jones. I think they're supposed to drop another trailer here soon, so maybe we'll get some other reveals in that. But I don't know. Maybe part of this being ranked number 2 is my anticipation for season 2. But I do remember really enjoying it and being super excited week to week to find out what happens next. It made me go back and read the comics that some of these episodes were based on, and really dive into the villain and the story. I don't know. It was so good week to week, and it lived up to my expectations. Like, all I needed it to do was not be an embarrassment, right? As long as you could stick with the tone. And I'm so happy, as much as I say that the rewrites kind of like were a negative, without them, I think this show would have been a disaster. I think it would have been a shadow of what it ended up being. And I'm so glad that they came in and they brought back original characters, more so than just Vincent D'Onofrio and now I'm blanking on Matt Murdock's name. The fact that they brought everyone back, even if some of it was short-lived, made the series for me. The fact that they basically put it in the same world with the same characters and the same backgrounds, and like, they haven't done a lot of referring to what happened in the past, but definitely those things did happen, or at least some version of those events did happen. So I'm glad they decided to continue on the series and not just have another like an alternate universe Daredevil. Especially if you're going to bring back the main characters, you can't have it be an alternate universe. Come on. So I'm so glad that they did the rewrites, that they decided, and that the actors stood up for it. Like, apparently the actors are what made this happen, or what made the rewrites happen, what made them bring back all the elements of the original series. It was going to be a much different thing. But yes, cutting together some of the new script with the old scripts and trying to work them both together, stuff that had already been shot, mixing it with stuff that they were shooting currently, it felt a little uneven at times, but I still enjoyed each and every episode of season 1. So here's to many more great seasons. Supposedly there's going to be 2 more seasons at least of this series, so let's hope they're as good or better than as season 1. And yeah, I can't wait. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the big reveal, if you haven't already figured it out. My number 1. And it is the most fun I had watching anything last year, Thunderbolts. And I'm sure a lot of you disagree with that, but I don't even care. For me, the MCU has always been about the theater. It's always been about the experience of going into a theater, watching one of these films on the big screen, watching the spectacle unfold. And Thunderbolts did it for me, man. More so even than Fantastic Four, more so than Brave New World. This was the most fun I had in the theater. Not only the story, but the characters that they brought together for this Thunderbolts story, which are very different from like different Thunderbolts characters that they brought together in comic books. I love that most of them didn't really have any significant powers. They either had some bit of powers, or they were super soldiers, or they were just really, really skilled. And Yelena Belova, if you've learned anything listening to my reviews on this podcast since about 2020, when Black Widow came out, you'll know that I have an undying love for Yelena Belova, one of my favorite characters of the MCU period, and definitely my favorite character to come out of the multiverse saga, right? What a fantastic character. I only wish she would have been introduced a little earlier, because I wish Black Widow would have come out a couple years earlier. everything about this movie did it for me. Like, okay, everything but the resolution. I was a little bit like taken aback by the fact that they solved this by going into the void, into his mind, and basically just telling him it's all right and kind of healing him with therapy. I don't know. Yeah, you got to have a workaround, right? Like, you got to have a way to beat the villain, and it would have been impossible to beat otherwise. A bunch of characters with basically no powers taking on a super being like that, they had no chance. So I get it. But, you know, we had seen that in Brave New World, where kind of talking him down, bringing his daughter and reminding him, you know, that he was actually a good guy deep down. And I don't know. Not the biggest fan of that type of storytelling. I like knockdown, drag out fights, but I get it. How else were you going to beat the void? I loved the characters. The characters made this movie. The characters' interactions made this movie. I only wish they hadn't killed off Taskmaster the way they did. I feel like once again the character got screwed. I don't know. She had more to do in Black Widow than she had to do in this thing, and she was supposed to be a premier character in the movie. I think fooling us with making it feel like she was going to be part of the movie and then killing her off in the first like 10 minutes was just fucking rude, man. I think this had potential to be one of the most interesting characters in the movies because of the power set, right? Because of the ability to mimic, and could have been awesome. And we got to see it for just like a glorious couple minutes until she was killed off by Ghost. Really upsetting. But with the characters that remained, oh man, like Red Guardian, Yelena, Ghost, Ghost I could do with or without. But John Walker, getting to see John Walker again, and this time on the big screen, was a treat. A real treat. And I hope we get to see much more of that character. You know, as I said, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series was one of my favorite series to come out of all the MCU series, period. And it was only the second series that dropped. It was supposed to be the first one that dropped. And it, in my opinion, is one of the best. And I know that most people disagree with me because anytime I've seen any rankings, it's nowhere near the top. But for me, it's like a number 2 to 3 series out of all of them. Only topped by like Hawkeye and maybe one other. So, love the character. Love John Walker in this series. And I love that we got to see the darkness in each one of these characters. Like, the fact that John Walker was like a shell of himself and he was really depressed, and that Yelena was just, man, everybody was sad in this movie and trying to find their way to some sort of happiness. But I don't know, man. It was good. The action was spectacular. All of it. And then bringing in Winter Soldier, whereas, you know, he wasn't like part of this group, but ended up becoming part of this group. And the fact that they're taking on Val, who's the real villain of this series, who doesn't even get defeated in the end, gets to kind of media spin things in her direction by making the Thunderbolts the new Avengers. I don't know. I mean, cool twist that she got to like turn it to her advantage. But she really was the villain of the series. So I don't know how. I mean, I guess I feel good about that. I like that she got away with it, and that we still have to deal with her going forward, and that she's powerless. She has no power, but she has the power of manipulation, right? And that's what, like, whether it be manipulating the Void, manipulating Um, the media. I thought the battle, the short-lived battle between the Thunderbolts and the Void was awesome. And how he just kind of like shut them down really quick, and they were like, okay, I guess we have no chance. Like I said, I don't love the way it ended up of how they conquered the Void. But hey, at least we've got that guy on our side now, right? At least for the time being, until some other manipulator comes along and is able to manipulate him into fighting the good guys again. But I love that they took a bunch of misanthropes, a bunch of down-and-out kind of losers of the MCU, which, I mean, personally, I don't think they're losers. But in the grand scheme of things, that's kind of what they were, and they were like this ragtag kind of group of a lot of former villains, and I love the interactions between them and how they bickered the entire time. And awesome movie, man. Like I said, best time I had watching anything all of 2025. Best time I had in the theater. I saw it several times. This is probably the most rewatched thing of everything that came out in 2025. I watched this probably like 8 or 9 times, and I still absolutely love it. So that's my list, guys. All right, my friends, that is going to do it for the 2025 MCU in review. I'd love to hear your guys' rankings. I'd love to hear what you thought of my rankings. I'm sure I'm ruffling some feathers with this one, but those are my honest thoughts. That is my opinion on the MCU in 2025. Now, if you do want to, for some reason, listen to that 18-minute live recording that I put out from Fan Expo Cleveland, I am going to make that available over on Patreon as a bonus episode. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. You also get access to video versions of every podcast. You'll get access to other bonus episodes and things like that. So go check out the Patreon at patreon.com/Marvel Plus if you want to check out that bonus episode and more. If you enjoyed this podcast, if this is your first time listening, where the hell you been? But if you enjoyed it, even if it's not your first time listening, if you have not yet left a review over on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or iHeart or anywhere that you listen to the podcast that allows you to leave reviews, please do so. I need the feedback. I love the feedback, and I love sharing the feedback when I get written reviews. So go over, rate and review the show. It does help the show to reach a larger audience. So if nothing else, you're helping to promote the show, even if you just leave a star rating. Also, come join the Marvel Plus Facebook group. Always good conversations happening over there. Awesome posts by myself and other members. And the group continues to grow, and I want it to continue to grow. So come join the Marvel Plus Facebook group. Just search Marvel Plus Podcast over on Facebook. And what else? Patreon, blah, blah, blah. But, if you're interested in being a guest, Daredevil Born Again Season 2 starts, I think, at the end of this month, towards the end of this month. If you're interested in being a guest for Daredevil Born Again Season 2, please reach out at marvelpluspodcast@gmail.com. Or if there's any upcoming projects that you'd be interested in, talking geeky trivia with me, please email the show. Or you can reach out on social media at Real Brett Scott, just about everywhere. Instagram, X, all the things. Find me on Facebook, what have you. Message me in the group. I would love to have you as a guest, especially if you've never been a guest on the show. That's one of my favorite things, is talking to new people about the stuff that we all know and love. So, with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this. I apologize to those who were tuning into the live feed and it got cut short. That sucks. It sucked for me. It sucked for you. And I apologize. It seems like every other live show that I do, something goes wrong. And the things that I listed that went wrong at this live show were not even like half of the things that went wrong. There was audio trouble with the mics. Like I ended up just having to project my voice because the mics weren't working, and the show got started late, and I arrived late, not to the show, but I arrived to Fan Expo Cleveland late. And so I only had like 20 minutes to prepare for the live show. So a lot of things went wrong. Hopefully next time, the next con I do will be better. And I hope that you all will not be discouraged from tuning in because of this mishap. But anyway, that's my 2025 MCU in review. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, my name is Brett Scott, and this has been Marvel Plus.